there are a lot of students to this day that are struggling. I remember once sleeping in a library, but it was, I think, a computer lab, but it was my own doing.
Yeah.
I was supposed to catch a bus the next day, and I moved out of res prematurely. But it made me realize the pain and the fear, because you get scared sleeping in like a hobo.
Yeah.
I wonder what the story is supposed to be with a lot of parents, because parents send you away with prayer, with hope, with a little bit of pocket money, hoping for NSFAS. And what the solution is from a university perspective. Should we be saying there should be no tertiary institution, and especially the big universities, that should accept a student until the university is sure of where that student should be staying, just as a matter of dignity? You can't just say, we'll accept you. Good luck with accommodation. We'll accept you on condition that you cannot leave your home without we as the university being your guardians, knowing exactly where you'll be sleeping and being able to account. Because if something happens to you, if you get violated, especially females, if you're found dead, etc., and the parents come and they ask, where was my child? And they're like, no, we don't know. We just educate them. It cannot be enough.
Look, it cannot be, but I think we should also place a level of responsibility on the state. I mean, they should be able to build state-funded or state-established student accommodations as well. I mean, university capacity can only go so far.
Sure.
These are public institutions, so there must be a level of responsibility we put on government to provide student accommodation. So where the university has shortfalls, because remember, these institutions were not established for the capacities that they're taking in now.
Not at all.
They were established with an idea that there won't be black people in them, and the white minority would be the ones who are attending there. So that's why there's also so limited accommodation spaces. So as society grows, as our population grows, as we develop, and of course, as we emerge into democracy, the demand to go to university has increased, and therefore the demand for accommodation has increased as well.
Sure.
And I think the university accommodation crisis is just a reflection of general broader lack of expansion of infrastructure and sites of services. We don't have enough clinics, we don't have enough hospitals, we don't have enough capacity for the railway network line to carry the population, we don't have enough capacity in terms of schools, even public schools as well. So our society didn't adapt post-1994 to the fact that what was previously places of exclusion for black people are now open. And I think that's a point that we must always remember. Since post-1994, we haven't accommodated the fact that now we have access to these services. Sure. And the necessary capacity must be provided.
Bad planning.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about the building of the accommodation. Okay, let me not ask that. Are you aware of all these, I'm sorry to sidebar, are you aware of all these new private accommodations that are coming up? I once made a video. I was walking outside UJ, and I remember making the video. It trended on TikTok, and then I'd bump into one of the senior leaders at UJ who was confirming what I'd suspected. And then a year later, I'd do research online. A lot of these accommodations, they've got names like Thrive, etc., but they're all under Growth Point City Property mostly.
Yeah.
And what would fascinate me would be the BEE components of these companies. And you'd realize it's all the ANC leaders. Because it looks like, to cater for the shortfall, there are private residences outside your tax, UJ, all these universities. And it's these two major property players with black partners coming to leech NSFAS money. Because that's essentially what it is, at a premium. Yeah. A student is sharing accommodation at 5,000 Rand a month, where they come from Ekasi, a 4-room, a back room, a shack.
Yeah.
But this money is not even, it's for their comfort somewhat, but the money is being chowed. I don't know if you've seen this and if you have any opinions on it.
Yeah, it's a major crisis. Look, NSFAS has been implicated in a lot of corruption, especially in collaboration with landlords and student accommodation providers in the private sector. So you'll have a landlord submitting that they are housing this many students, and that is not the case. Yeah. You'll have and they'll collaborate that with NSFAS as well. So they'll create ghost students, they'll create ghost employees, they'll create this phenomenon of non-existent people being utilized in order to extract money from NSFAS and state institutions is just a general crisis. And I'm aware of that. The private accommodation sector collaborates with people and elements within NSFAS to extort large amounts of money as well. And the conditions, I think, is what we must also be concerned about in these private accommodations. Some of them are deplorable. They don't have water, they don't have electricity, they don't have adequate security. People are getting violated within them as well. They're not in the necessary or required locations. You'll have a private accommodation that is more than 10 kilometers away from campus. What was the point of that? So the attempt to involve private sector players in the student accommodation space is not working out as things stand. And I think it's an argument for state capacity building of accommodation in the student sector, particularly. Look, we're not saying there mustn't be private actors and private players in the provisions of accommodation. That's a misconception, I think, that there is about the EFF in general, that we don't want private sector participation at all. We're just saying it must be regulated. And I think what you're mentioning about these two major players in the student accommodation sector is testament to the fact that it must be regulated. And without proper regulation, without proper systems in place, corruption thrives.